Mark Jones, what swaps expire tomorrow? The swaps are the bullet swaps left over from Archegos. So Archegos got seized was sometime in March 2021. And they apparently had launched a whole bunch of bullet swaps on their liabilities that they had. And when they got liquidated, those bullet swaps got gobbled up by Credit Suisse and have been bringing them down ever since. So the short plays that Archegos had done basically destroyed Credit Suisse and is continuing to destroy them. And if UBS took on that liability, it might destroy UBS. So this poison pill is just spreading. And those things expire tomorrow, which means they're supposed to make good on the debt that's incurred in those swaps tomorrow. So that's a lot of money. Billions. We know that there's GME in there. We don't necessarily know how much. Someone shared a Bloomberg. It was a Bucky Rensel. He showed a Bloomberg terminal image showing that Credit Suisse had like $410 million in shorts. It was $410 billion. Whatever it was a ridiculous number that should not exist. And that those are probably tied up in those bullet swaps. Georgia Herd. Georgia. Kelly Reed, happy birthday, Houston. How would you explain to people trying to understand what MOASS is and the movement behind it, trying to get parents to understand? Oh man, that's the entire reason I made my original Twitter thread explaining GameStop 2 years ago, February 2 years ago. Is because my dad kept asking questions and I kept answering him. And then he'd be like, I don't get it. And I'd answer him again. He'd be like, I don't get it. And I answer him again. And finally, he got it. And I was like, that's how I need to explain it. And I wrote my Twitter thread that then went weirdly viral. And now I do this show as a result. Basically, hedge funds, they take investors' money. They have clients, customers, to take their money. And you have to have $1 million minimum to join a hedge fund. So you have $1 million, you become an accredited investor. You can then invest that $1 million with a hedge fund. And then the hedge fund manages your money and try to maximize what they can get out of it. So they take that money and they buy a bunch of blue chip stocks and they buy a bunch of bonds, largely treasuries, solid bonds, stuff like that. Mortgage-backed securities that we all thought was solid, but not necessarily. Then they take that big old chunk of money and they borrow against it. And they can borrow up to 30 to 1 leverage. So their margin, if they have $1 billion, means they can borrow up to $30 billion to make plays. Now, you or I, in our Fidelity account or something, we might get 2 times if we're lucky. Maybe 3 if we got a lot of money in there. We don't get to borrow 30 times the amount of money that's in there. Only those accredited investors and those hedge funds and those big family funds can do that. So they take that billion, they borrow 30 billion. With that 30 billion, they make a whole bunch of short plays. And those short plays are often, I'm going to destroy this company, so I'm going to borrow a whole bunch of that stock. That borrowing of stock, it's attached to their margin. So let's say they borrow $20 billion in stock from a company, right? Of a company, and then they sell it. They sell it $20 billion, and their goal is to drive the price down, go back in, buy that what was $20 billion of stock for pennies, and then pay back their loan, and they get their old margin back again. And whatever the profit was on that, they can take that profit, they can put it into their accounts under management, assets under management, or give it out to their clients as dividends, and then they can grow and have an even larger amount that's 30x for them to borrow. And so they do this over and over and over and over. They may jump in on IPOs, get a tech IPO early, and ride that sucker up, sell it, add that to the assets under management, so on. But for the most part, that they're constantly in this battle trying to turn that $30 billion that's borrowed into a significant amount of money. The big problem is that they got addicted to destroying companies. And in America, monkey butt, don't lick. In America, you can destroy companies all you want. And no one really does anything about it except goes, oh, KP2 hobby's gone. And so many hedge funds and so many family funds formed, and there's only so many companies they can destroy that what happened is they all jumped in and dogpiled on the same companies over and over and over, and they shorted them too much. Now, when you short a company, you borrow stock, you sell that stock at a high price, and you hopefully can buy it for a cheap price later. But if everyone borrows a stock and borrows more than the shares that exist, when the stock price drops and they have to go in and buy that stock back, it can cause a squeeze because they're all buying at the same time, causing the price to rocket. If they're forced to buy it back, let's say you borrowed $1 billion in stock and all of a sudden the stock price went up and you owe $2 billion, you're going to get margin called. Someone's going to say, hey, I want my stock back because it's worth a lot of money and I want it back. And you might be forced to go in the market, buy that stock at a price higher than you had sold it for. And then a whole bunch of other hedge funds at the same time are all doing the same thing, causing the stock price to rocket beyond that, which, if you're being forced to buy back $2 billion in stock, but the process of trying to buy it back makes it cost $10 billion, you may have just wiped out a significant portion of your margin or a significant portion of your assets under management, which will then wipe out your margin. This stuff absolutely brutalizes hedge funds in the end. And because none of them are inventive or creative, they all do the exact same thing. And they're all going to be facing the exact same consequences. So, explain to your parents is these companies decide to try and destroy these hedge funds decide to try and destroy the same companies all at the same time and then over leverage themselves. And now the value of those companies are going to explode and destroy the hedge funds. It's like the coyotes monkey butts fighting. If the deer population explodes, the coyotes eat all the deer, nom, 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 nom. Then the deer disappear, and the coyotes all starve to death. In this case, the coyotes are the hedge funds, and the deer are the companies they're shorting. And then they short everybody, and now they're all going to starve to death. So we need to cull the coyote population and get it back down to a healthy level, and MOASS is going to do that. Casey Chapman, I don't know, Bruto. Didn't Bezos start off his career in the hedge fund industry? Amazon directly profited from putting companies out of business through the short distort scheme. That's true. They do that. They did that as well. They will gladly gobble up, the remnants of eToys and KB Toy Hobby and Toys R Us and all that stuff. They will pick over the bones, no problem. Scott Paul and GME 10K highlights. Oh, good. Someone read it. Establish omni-channel retail experience. 2, achieve profitability. 3, leverage brand equity to support growth. Okay, that's pretty standard. They did the profitability. They got that out of the way. Omni-channel retail experience. I guess multiple platforms. Yeah, and leverage brand equity to support growth. They do have name recognition that other retail brands do not have. I do not think they've quite fully capitalized on it. I would like to see some traditional marketing being done by GameStop. It can't all be guerrilla marketing and Wall Street Bets weirdos talking about it all the time. They're going to have to have a TV commercial play every once in a while and be like, GameStop, come get your game stuff here or online. And people go, oh yeah, I want to get game stuff. I should go to GameStop. Needs to be a little bit more of that in the general public's Scott Paul and GME emphasis on cost containment and improve margins through operational discipline and higher margin product categories. 2, ensure cost structure is sustainable relative to revenue goals.